Welcome to the 117th broadcast of the T-ROH show. It's your host, Keith. Got John with me.
Good morning, folks. I hope you enjoy this one.
All right, this is what we're going to do, folks. This show, a particular show, is going to blow every patriot theory that's out there as far as who the creditor is in this country. So we're going to, we put together just a little thing, just a simple WordPress doc to give you an idea of what we're talking about here. And then we're going to show you what happened to the rest of the country as to why everything is so screwed up. And then we'll go from there. All right. So share a doc here, and you have to switch your thinking. That's what we got to do. Is you got to switch who's who and what's what in this situation. Okay, so how to rob a manufacturer, supplier, retailer, labor, and a home buyer and take over a country in plain sight without anyone ever knowing what happened. All you got to do is switch positions with the creditors. That's all you have to do. So we got to turn the clock back, because everybody in their mind is the bank is the creditor. That's what everybody thinks. And it's absolutely not true at all. We've got the patriot groups are saying, oh, it's the people that are the creditors. It was my signature. And we're going to tell you here, no, it's not. Not even close. All right, here we go with a scenario. The manufacturer, supplier, retailer are the creditors. Okay, manufacturer, supplier, retailer are the creditors. Now let's go back to, in the day, okay, when the country was being developed. A builder pays for workers supplied by Treasury through railroads, interest-free, debt-free, tax-free. Okay, so back in the day, the railroads used to be robbed. Well, you didn't have a whole lot of banks anywhere in the country. The railroad cars were the banks, just so everybody knew. But the banks were not the creditors. Just keep that in mind. Okay, the builder sold property with monthly payments, paid creditors, and kept building future homes. Who was the builder paying? He was paying the manufacturer, the supplier, and retailer. Supplier could be like a warehouse. Okay, so the manufacturer puts his stuff in the warehouse. He becomes the supplier, and the railroads would come and pick up the supplies and send them out to the retailers. And all that was done on credit. There was no real money involved in it. It's when the products were used and consumed, because, see, the manufacturer still owned the products at that time. They own the products until those products are used by someone, like a private family. The builder would pay for the workers supplied by Treasury. Okay, the money was supplied by Treasury. So Treasury would put money on the same railroad, in the railroad cars. Treasury would mint the coin and all that, and then they were the suppliers for the who supplied the money, basically the accounting. Okay, through railroads, interest-free, debt-free, and tax-free. That's how it used to operate. Okay, so this is what's going on today. Builder receives a line of credit. So when you go to the bank, you can get a line of credit. The line of credit can be up to $5 million, whatever it is. Buys materials from supplier and buys land, etc. This is what you usually see when you see a developer coming in. They usually go to zoning and say, okay, we want to put in a subdivision. And a developer comes in and buys up all the land. The builders are usually working for him, but he receives a line of credit and buys materials from supplier and buys land, etc. Developer is just dealing with the legalities of things. He's really not even needed, to be honest with you. The builder builds a home or subdivision, pays tradesmen out of the line of credit. Remember, that line of credit should be coming from where? Oh, gee, that should be coming from the manufacturer. That should be his line of credit. Okay? Now, home buyer buys a home at high interest. Interest is never printed. They never print the interest or put it in the system. In other words, this money supply is restricted. The principal is printed, but not the interest. Home buyer goes into foreclosure. because when you don't print the interest, now you got to take it from somebody else. So if you have 10 people that are trying to pay their loans off and the interest is never printed, they've got to start taking from the other guy to pay their interest back and forth. Somebody's going to lose out somewhere. You're going to have foreclosed homes. And I think back in the 90s, it was figured out that every 8 home or every 10 homes, 2 were going to go in foreclosure by design.
They had to go in foreclosure because there was no money to pay the interest.
Right. There was no money in circulation to pay the interest.
That's right, because it was never printed.
That was known back in the 90s. We knew that way back then. 1990s. That was a well-known thing. I think Tom Schaff came up with that. It says a bank takes supplies. He takes the manufacturer's supplies, home, land, and resells, claiming ownership. That's what happens. So what happened? The bank took the position of the manufacturer, supplier, retailer, and those were the true creditors. Keep in mind, when the manufacturer manufactures products and he puts it on the railroad, this is way back when now, he puts it on the railroad and ships it out, those supplies have not been claimed yet. So they still belong to the manufacturer. So no money has to exchange hands, period. At the same time, the railroad is also trucking out the money that's needed out there for trade. And it was done in interest-free, debt-free, and tax-free. When you tack interest onto it and you don't supply the interest money, somebody's going to go in foreclosure. Okay, so here's where it ends up now. The manufacturer is having to buy the materials or the equipment that it needs to manufacture 2x4s, nails, tools, all this other stuff. That's what's going on today. So they have to get a line of credit or borrow money to buy the materials and the equipment and everything to make the materials that they manufacture. That's what's going on now. Now, here's the question. If Treasury is supplying the money, the pay, and all the money involved in this way back when, and that was transferred to a private bank, which was the international bankers, that supply, now they have control of what? All the manufacturing, suppliers, and retailers. Right here. And take the place of the real creditors, which happen to be the manufacturers, suppliers, and retailers. Once they took that place, that's when all hell broke loose. That's when you had these money dips and money hikes and all this other kind of stuff. It just went crazy. Why? Because they threw it in a gambling casino. Now, what do I mean by that? The people that took this over back in the day was called the CME group. The CME group is an incorporation, and they're the ones that are setting the prices. It's a Chicago Mercantile Exchange and Chicago Board of Trade. Everybody sees NASDAQ every day. See this NASDAQ right here? But nobody has any idea what it is. It says an American financial market company operating an options and futures exchange. It owns and operates large derivatives and future exchanges in Chicago, New York City, and exchange facilities in London using online trading platforms. Now you know where England comes in when it comes to this country. It also owns the Dow Jones stock and financial indexes. It owns them. So people thought the New York Stock Exchange was owned by what? New York. No, it's owned by the CME Group in Chicago. And CME Clearing Services, which provides settlement and clearing of exchange trades right there. So what they're doing is they're setting the prices here. When you set the prices on something, you literally control the money. The exchange-traded derivative contracts include futures and option based on interest rates, equity, indexes, foreign exchange, energy, agricultural commodities, rare and precious metals, weather. Now we're dealing in weather here. And real estate. Wonder why. They're setting the prices for real estate. It has been described by The Economist as the biggest financial exchange you have never heard of. The corporate world headquarters are in Chicago in the Loop. The corporation was formed by a 2007 merger of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and the Chicago Board of Trade. On March 17, 2008, CME Group announced it acquired New York MEX Holdings Incorporated, the parent company of the New York Mercantile Exchange and Commodity Exchange. The acquisitions was formally completed in August 22nd, 2008. Wasn't that when the big real estate bubble came in?
Yep.
Gee, I wonder who did that, since they were involved in real estate.
Yep. And what they do is they lower the interest rate to zero, and everybody goes out and borrows money. And the next year that you look at, and now it's 25% interest. And they
Right.
give you, yes. Now the higher the interest rate is, the more foreclosures they get, because there's less people can get. No, there's no money printed for the interest. Therefore,
Right.
Go ahead.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. CME announced they would begin trading in Bitcoin futures by the end of 2017, pending regulatory approval. Right here. Now you know who was behind Bitcoin the whole time. That was these people here, CME Group. Okay, the New York Mercantile Exchange is when they took over. That's in where? Oh, Manhattan Island. Back to Manhattan again. Okay. The CME Group is the world's leading and most diverse derivatives marketplace. The company is comprised of 4 designated contract markets. Further information on each exchange, rules, and products listings can be found by clicking on the link. See, product listings right here. That's where the manufacturers go. Here's some of the stories. They're behind the story of global commerce. They're the ones setting up the global commerce that nobody even pays attention to. You know why? I know why. It's because the New York Stock Exchange has like 25,000. It's up 25,000. But the NASDAQ is always about 27 or 3,700 or something. So people don't really pay attention to it. So you have all these people. Okay, you saw all those people with confetti, right? All those people do absolutely nothing to produce anything. That's the sad part here. They have put all this mom and pop stores out of business because they couldn't control them. They put all the small manufacturers out of business because they couldn't control them. And they wanted to set the price so that they could keep their private script in that system and remain relevant. That's basically what it is, because they were never really needed. They try to remain relevant. So the bigger these guys get, the smaller manufacturers become. All the small farmers put out of business. Why? Because they couldn't control all those small farms. So therefore they couldn't control the commodities. So they had to bring them into large corporate farms, corporately owned farms that CME Group and these markets could control. It's much easier to control one farm that's very large than it is to attempt to control 150 small farms. It's much easier to set the prices. So why is it that farmers can't sell directly to the stores? Why do they have to go through these people? That's the whole point. Why do all that? Tobacco growers have to go in and they have to go, I think they go to auction, or they have to they can sell whatever they can sell, whatever it is. And they don't really make a whole lot of money. And farmers don't either. Because they have to beat those prices down as low as they can possibly go. Because they have to make it to where when they resell it, they got to pay all these people. that do absolutely nothing. Nothing, guys. So they took over the money supply, and then they took over the creditor position. And guess what, folks? In the real world, money suppliers like treasuries, national governments, and things like that, they're not the creditors. They're just making sure the money supply is there so that people have an accounting as to how many hours they worked and and how much money they made when they did that, and that kind of deal. It allows the accounting to be put in place. That's it. That's all it's for. They're not the creditors. The banks have never been the creditors. Ever in the history of the world, banks are not creditors. Here's the regulatory outreach. They make things really sound well. CME Group's regulatory outreach programs provides market participants with the information and resources necessary to meet their compliance needs, because we have to be in compliance. There's your socialism. This is a socialist industry. Okay? They even push corporate citizenship. We are proud to be a socially responsible organization. Why are you getting into social issues, guys? All you do is what do? You exchange and set prices on manufactured goods. What the hell are you doing in social issues? That dedicates time and resources to corporate citizenship. And we look forward to continuing to make a difference through our global outreach. These are the boys that are running the global outreach. Here's their notice search, because I was wondering who actually regulated these guys. I can't find anybody that does. I might just be ignorant, not know. But I really don't know, because they have a notice of disciplinary action for the Business Conduct Committee. Here's another one. Here's the clearinghouse. Corporate bond update. So here's my question, John. I wonder if they set the prices on the bonds the municipalities trade in court cases.
Yes, they do. And they also set the monetary value of the product of man and woman. That's where they got in social.
They got into socialism, you mean?
Yeah, no, they're corporate citizenship.
Well, have you ever wondered? Think about it this way. In this particular scenario, when they took the creditor's position,
Yep,
that's when they made babies the product of human conception.
that's right. That's what I was getting at. They own the kids because it's a product of man and woman.
And they're setting the price on that product.
Yes, they are.
All these disciplinary actions they've had to put in. There's pages. Pages and pages of it. Now, the CME Group is the world's leading and most diverse derivatives marketplace, handling 3 billion contracts worth approximately 1 quadrillion annually. Two of the best-known commodity exchanges in the United States are the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Group and the New York Mercantile Exchange, which is actually a part of the CME Group. So why don't you say that the CME Group runs it? Why'd you create that way, right?
Didn't Chicago and New York merge while ago in that other one?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes, they did. Now, so CME does run it because they merged those two groups.
So here we go. So folks, what we're doing here is the reason why that we're telling you this is because there is never going to be any freedom as long as you have people like this that have stolen a position of creditors. The banks are not the creditors. They never have been. You have to look at it that way. They're the ones that created the credit card industry, which is probably one of the largest industries in the world, because people love credit cards. They can go buy stuff and all that kind of jazz. But those products that you guys are buying, they set the prices on every one of those. They can make them go up, they can make them go down, they can make them do whatever, and it affects everyone. That's what's happening. So what we're doing here, um, when we brought back the the Treasury voucher certificate, all we're doing is we have the original government, and what we're doing is we're just supplying the money. That's it, and interest-free, debt-free, and tax-free. We need manufacturers to learn that they're the creditors again. We need the suppliers and retailers to learn the same thing. People have seen these old movies, these old cowboy movies where they go down to the general store. They go in and take a bunch of stuff, and then they sign for it, and they said, "I'll get you next week. I'll take care of it." Because what they're doing is they're taking those products on credit, and then they're manufacturing things from them. They're making things from them, and then they sell them. They make bread, or they make this, or they make that, and then they sell it. And then that money that's already in that system, okay, that was supplied to them, people have a way of exchanging and accounting, keeping accurate accounting, and they're going in and they're paying off their their creditor. Who was that? Their front creditor is the retailer who borrowed the products that they had from the supplier, who borrowed the products from the manufacturer. And only when they are used does ownership transfer. And the manufacturer says, "Okay, I'll take this money in return," so he can buy more supplies to manufacture more things. And then it starts going around in a circle. And that's how your country operates. It's incredible how easy it is. But when you've got people that are robbing the supplier, manufacturer, retailer, home buyer, and then coming in saying they're the creditors, when the Federal Reserve was only supposed to be the money supplier. They're not the creditors at all, because you have branch banks of the Federal Reserve, and they created the ABA, which is the American Bankers Association, which is a private membership association again. They were only supposed to supply the money, print it. That's it. That's all their job is.
Yes, and basically the Federal Reserve note is not supposed to be on the street. That was made to transfer between banks. So when they
We can barely hear you, John.
I said the Federal Reserve is supposed to be not supposed to be on the street. That's supposed to be traded between the banks. And when they put it on the street down there, they made every one of you bankers.
Well, they tried. They tried to bring everybody in.
Yes, they did.
In the scam that they were running themselves, so nobody would witness against them, because they would come back and say, "Hey, man, you guys are involved too. Y'all went in to get loans. Y'all went to get credit cards. Y'all went to get all this stuff. So you're involved in this scam against your own country."
That's right. Now that they've got that thing set up, it goes from left, goes around the right, all the way around the circle, back to the manufacturer again. And what we've got to do is get this back into cottage entry industry, where each people, small shops all over the country, small farms all over the country, and cut the bankers out. Just reverse the circle they've got right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way we ever get this country free.
And the only way to do that is to change your mindset.
Yep.
That the people are not the creditors. That has all been blown out of proportion. There are people that sell programs of how to be the creditor. Okay.
To be the creditor, they got to be the producer.
That's right. If you're not manufacturing something, you're not a creditor.
That's correct.
If you're not holding a warehouse full of supplies, and a distribution center is basically suppliers, a distribution center, distributing to retailers, you're not a creditor.
That's right.
And if you're a retailer and you're requiring them to borrow money to buy your material, you're not a creditor either.
Yep.
Because people are supposed to be able to bring that stuff out, manufacture things with it, or make things with it, make money with it, and then pay you back. That's what they're supposed to do.
That's right.
You're only supposed to supply things. A retailer is nothing more than a um, a basic local warehouse, county warehouse, where people can go get supplies and get things that they can't get or make in their own county.
That's right. Because the cottage industry has been taken away from them.
Mm-hmm. So this is how we have to start. Okay, this is the first step or first phase that we have to work with. The first phase is what they call a treasury voucher certificate. First of all, what you have to do is you have to get the money in the hands of the people. But you can't just give it to them, because then it just becomes fluff, right? So it has to be somewhat labor backed. So if you provide a service for somebody, if you're taking care of your grandmother, if you're doing something like that, that's worth something. Okay, so the Treasury Voucher Certificate is, you can get a downloadable one here, which is, you just click this button and you can take this with you. And when you download it, it has these boxes in there, and then just fill it out. That's all I got to do is fill it out and put the value in what you did. And then what we'll do is we'll put it in your bank account. Okay, let me go ahead and get these. There we go. Go to the bank. Okay, that gets the money in your hands. Just simple services left and right. Things you can do. You have to start somewhere. Now, we don't cash out any liens, whether UCC or otherwise, judgments, fee schedules, or other type of instruments that have been created out of thin air by people that believe that they are the creditors when they have not manufactured a thing in their entire life. Okay? So we have to change that. You see how far off things have become? I mean, way off track. And and the understanding of it is become very twisted in the way that they have put out. Probably the same group put out all this this creditor rigmarole, through the banks, and just so people won't figure it out. That's all they're trying to do. Just they needed time. Just keep in mind that if you're found committing fraud by creating a contract out of nothing when no work is performed, will result in never being able to redeem another treasury voucher certificate again in your lifetime. That means we can't have fraud in this deal. We can't have two guys sitting there playing video games, and one gets up and vacuums the floor and thinks he needs to get paid $50. Not going to happen. You need to actually start producing. This country is torn to pieces. Your infrastructure is horrible. Your electrical grid is over 50 years old, which means they put new subdivisions on these same old electrical grids, and that's gonna fail soon. So you think Venezuela's bad? It's gonna get bad here. All right, so you just put the contractor's name, the email used to open up the bank account. You can do this in the on a download. Okay. Also, you don't have to do the online one. You got their country and NAT code. If you don't have a NAT code, just put an address. That's fine. Work voluntarily performed herein. So just put in what you did. What was the value? Okay, and if you don't know how to figure the value, you click here for suggested wages. So you go here, and this is the 2017 suggested wages. This is marketing managers, sales managers, fundraisers, all that kind of stuff. How much money they make and that kind of deal. We just got to start somewhere. Would you like to liquidate the voucher by placing the above amount in the contractor's account? You can go yes or no, or you can sell or you can spend the voucher itself. Then they can fill it out, or they can keep it or transfer it somewhere else. It's fine. It's the same as money anyway. There's your signature, name of customer phone number in case we'll randomly call people and make sure everything's good to go. Here's the signature of customer. And this one is you can add files. Okay, this contract upload voluntarily in event. You don't have to do this. someone claims that two people signing this Treasury voucher certificate are in fact committing fraud, meaning the work has never been performed. Doc upload can be a PDF format. All information in the contract or other evidence is strictly confidential. We don't charge taxes, so we don't care how much money it was. There's no taxes involved. So that's not why we're doing it. We're just doing it for evidence. That's it. If you want evidence, we'll do that for you. It's a service. Then you execute the voucher. Okay, this one here, I'm sorry, that's not it. This one here, you email to treasury@generalpostoffice.org to transfer amount into bank account. Or you can spend the voucher itself. You can also click here for the suggested wages. Okay, if our next generation is going to have any future whatsoever, we need good, honest people that produce, manufacture things, and that allows the government of the United States of America to make sure the money is in place. There's money in that system so people can move. They don't have to carry things and they don't have to trade things and barter. They can just take that money and spend it somewhere else. That's really what needs to be done. Otherwise, this has been proven, by the way. Yes, this does work. It has been proven and it does work. When you cut out this whole NASDAQ thing and all this other jazz out of your trading, you're going to find out, folks, that you can make a lot of money. The money sits where it's supposed to. If you've got these other guys that are going in there and they're running, oh, we're going to go to global finance and we're going, and then they start getting so successful that it starts going to their head and they start believing they're gods. That's what happens to them. When you've got people kissing your butt all day long when you're walking through the halls and scared of you and all this other stuff, you start feeling real powerful and you start thinking that nothing can touch you. And you're going to treat everybody like dirt. And you're going to think of everybody as scumbags. Everybody but you. That's what's going to happen. And that's what's happened here. These guys think that they can put a global thing together and they can become masters of the universe. That's how far it's become. We've already had one voucher so far. It's only been out a couple of days. We've got one voucher in. And at the bank, when we're talking about it, what we do is we put the amount in your account. And we have the my balance labor back continental dollars. Calculate exchange as one continental dollar for one USD. And we'll do that for you. No problem. Transfer labor back continental dollars to other users. So now you can trade with other people for the continental dollars that you have earned through this voucher system. The one that's signing for you, the customer, guess what happens? You go and paint a house. The customer bought the paint because that's how we have to do it today, because that's how they have the system all screwed up now. All you got to do is have them sign the voucher. No money comes out of the customer's account, nothing. Because the Treasury, the Office of the Treasury for the government of the United States of America, is supplying the accounting and is supplying the money. And since there's no taxes, there's no interest and no debt, that money's yours free and clear. You're good to go with it. We can do this with paper, and we can also do it electronically here on this bank. Okay, is there anything, guys, that I'm missing?
Not that I know of, Keith.
Okay. There's two types of continental dollars. One is pegged to the silver. The other one's labor backed. The one that's labor backed will have LB on it. Okay. So, and you can do this all day long. The more people that open up a bank account at the Continental Public Bank, the more people you can trade with. So retail stores can open up an account and you can start buying stuff from them with the Continental dollar. We got to get more manufacturers in and producers. If we do not do that, that is outside of the NASDAQ system, this country's toast. Now, I'm not trying to scare you. I just see what they've done.
A good place to start with the voucher system too is with the old folks, the disabled and stuff like that that are on fixed income. They can't afford to have a lot of stuff done on the houses that it could be done with a voucher system.
Yeah. I mean, just, teenagers just sitting there doing nothing, sitting on the porch or, moving towards the gang life. They can go over, just do a few things at somebody else's house, have them sign the voucher, uh, email it to Treasury, and it'll go right into their bank account.
Yep.
It's a real simple thing. And this is how you do a economic recovery. This is how it's done. You can start there. And then the bigger it gets, the bigger, the more people start saying, hey, I can do this or I can do that. They start getting more ideas. And the people themselves can start putting themselves to work.
Yep. There's a lot of the old folks got homeowners insurance. They can take that insurance policy and have it paid for. That pays for the supplies itself. They sign a voucher for your labor, and that's the way to get it started a lot quicker than some of the other ways.
Right. There's plenty of ways out there. I think service is probably the best way to get started because a lot of people are sitting there, don't know what to do and don't know how to do it, or just don't know what to do. What can I do? If you see your neighbor and they're older and they need their lawn mowed, hey, do you mind if I use your mower and I mow your lawn? Well, what are you going to charge us? I just need to sign the voucher. $40, $50, I'll do it for you.
Yep.
It's that simple. You're using their mower and their gas. So it's not really anything out of your pocket, and you get $50 and it goes into your bank account.
You get paid for your labor.
Yeah. And once this starts happening, it starts people start seeing it, and the manufacturers are starting to realize, well, if they ever watch this broadcast, they would say, wait a minute, that's right, we are the creditors here. What are we doing?
That's correct. And when they sign the voucher, the only thing they're doing is giving you permission to pay yourself.
Well, no, they're not. They're vouching that the work was done. That's all it meant. That's all it is.
That's correct.
Which allows the government of the United States of America to put that money in circulation. That's what allows it. Okay,
Yep.
Because you're not just printing money out of thin air. It's actually being worked into a system that we can all use. That we don't have to give everybody our thumbprint, our eye scan, a chip in us, or something like that to prove who we are. Number one, and number two, no privacy is being infringed upon because of the simple fact that there's no taxes. When you have no taxes, you don't need to know anything about what they're doing. We just look at the contract.
Yep.
And we'll put in regulations, and as far as if they're working with the elderly and things like that, was the work ever done? We just make a phone call. Did they do this work? Either yes or no. That's all we need to know. It won't happen all the time. It'll just be random, just checking things here and there to make sure that it stays honest. And that's pretty much it, folks. If this system right here is the way it has been done before, and it's happened before, so it's been proven. And if not, this NASDAQ and this friggin', these markets that these guys are implementing or have implemented, are basically just ripping people off like you wouldn't believe, because the money supply does not belong to an actual government, where everybody within that government has a social compact together, and they're all working together for the same goal: prosperity, a future for their a future for their future generations. I think enough damage has been done. We need to start moving and turning it around. So if you ever want to know what the problem is with the economy, their economy, go right over to NASDAQ. It's that group that's doing every bit of it. They're the ones that are causing the problems. And the problems are they want more control, more control, more control. because they produce nothing, control everything. That was the key. They are not the creditors. Keep that in mind. Bank of New York Mellon, not the creditor. CME Group, not the creditors. The branch banks, they're not the creditors. The manufacturers are the creditors. Thanks for listening to the 117th broadcast of the T-ROH Show. We'll see you next week.